All right, that's set up. Welcome, everyone. Trying something different, playing around with a lot of things, but I still want to be able to give some valuable information to everyone. So let's hope this is recording. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and pull my screen up. Believe that is up, and that is not it. Let me pull up the screen one more time. Trying something different, so bear with me. Okay, so that's what I want to put on the screen. Here's what I want to put on. All right, and that. No, that's not it. Should be up by now. And we are in. Okay, perfect. All right, so I was asked a question recently about how to coach a large group of jumpers when it comes to long triple and high. And this happens a lot. And we coaches get to figure out ways to make this process just easier and just allows us to keep everyone safe and the athletes to learn in the best way possible. So I'm going to go through a few things. First thing is communication, how to be transparent with being able to get the information across to the staff and also the athletes. Going to go through the seeds of setting your foundation of actually how to organize everything. Then the application, the flow of practice. And the last part is there's some bonus tips that I'm going to be able to provide just from my personal experience and things that I've done, things that have failed, things that have succeeded, and et cetera. So the first thing is going to be communication. Running with sprints, then jumps doesn't work. There are a lot of programs out there that the head coach says, you know, I want my athletes to all run together, and then whatever other events that they do, they're welcome to do that after. Well, what doesn't work is if you run repeat 400s or 150s, you're just tired, and you're not going to get the information to the body how you want it to when you're already tired and depleted. And a lot of these athletes don't eat correctly. So the energy sources that they have been depleted. And now they're being asked to pay attention. They're being asked to do so much more. So it's very important that you communicate with your head coach with creating a system and a flow that allows the athletes to learn as best as possible. I was in a situation where I was able to take all of the primary jumpers and have them do their running with me. Now, the part that was a challenge in the beginning was establishing my value as a coach and establishing that I know what I'm talking about. So, you know, I came into the program with knowledge already and program proven systems, but most coaches who are beginning don't have that system yet. And so the head coach may or may not trust your skills and your ability. And if that's the case, it's going to be a challenge, but just opening communication and saying, hey, you know what, give me 2 or 3 athletes that I know are primary jumpers and let me run them on my own so I can keep them on calendar and on schedule to where that they can learn and they can develop their running skills and then see what happens. The only way is to see what's best for you and your coaching staff and your system and go from there. The next thing is you got to know what you're doing. And if you don't, then again, talk to the coach and let he or she know you're going to try these things out. The next part is demographics. It's understanding exactly who you're talking to once you get these athletes in front of you. Now, many times you have freshman girls, freshman boys, you have senior boys, senior girls, and then everything in between. You have athletes who are brand new to the sport, athletes who need the top level of information. You need to know exactly who you have and who you're working with, because once you can identify those, then you're set. So I broke up my groups into beginners, novice, and then the veterans. The veterans, I can leave them alone, but also they need the most attention when it comes down to critique and form, right? Then I have my beginners who anything that they do is going to benefit them, whether it's lunges or squats or just running down the runway, it's all going to be great. But it's also important for the beginners to learn about what's going on, mainly because whatever they're taught in the beginning is what they're going to do later on. So keeping that in understanding. So once I break them up to beginners, novice, and veterans, I then break them again into my newbies, my returners, and then my independent athletes. So for example, my newbies are the ones that I have to hold their hand. Then I also have the independent athletes where I tell them, listen, I'm going to be gone and not as interactive with you for the next 2 or 3 weeks, just because I got to get the newbies caught up. And I'm going to need my returners who are still learning to support me in teaching the newbies when I'm with the other athletes and vice versa. So I have these supporters, and I've delegated roles to these athletes. And when the athletes take these roles, many times, if they are true leaders and you've decided that, or you've seen who the true leaders are, it's going to be super easy because they're going to take ownership into their role and allow you to do so much more. So now the off-season value, building trust, the organization, and athlete focus and attention. So the reason why I have this on here is because when you're with athletes in the off-season, you're able to articulate what your vision is, what your philosophy is, and really show the athletes that you're trustworthy. When they trust you, then they're going to work with you all the time. But what typically happens is athletes come into season when track season starts. And so now they're coming off of basketball, they're coming off of football or soccer, and they have a certain way of learning. And then now they have to just pop into a new way of learning or a new coach or a new face, and they're not ready for that yet. So the off-season value is huge. If you're able to work with these athletes in the off-season, whether it's the fall or the summer or even the winter, just to kind of plant the seed and just let them know, hey, I'm going to be outside the box. And just trust me on this. We're going to get some things done. And also being transparent. If I don't know something, I'll tell the athlete, I don't know about this. So let's learn. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some information. I'm going to come back, present that to you, and then you tell me what you think, and let's work together. But that transparency goes a very, very long way. And it allows the athletes to really to trust, and the rapport is built. And that's one of the bigger things to keep going. And then again, once you do have that philosophy, the athletes who do trust your program are going to be in it. Let's say it's even 4 athletes. That's fine. Those 4 athletes are going to be leaders when it comes down to in season, when you're teaching and having to separate the divisions or the tiers of the athletes. So planting the seed, understanding and organizing your season before you get into it. So there's the macro and the micro part of organizing. So the macro part of the season is going to be pretty much know your like your season, like what are you doing, right? As a team, our goal is to win a team championship. Our goal is to get 15 athletes in CIF or the playoffs, depending on where you are. There's this bigger picture, right? Also, what my picture is, am I trying to get these athletes to perform at a very high level because that's what I want to do for them, or whatever it may be, is understanding what it is that you do. The next thing is know your season per individual, because you might have 7 athletes who are going to make it to league finals. However, you have 3 athletes that are going to make it to state. You have to schedule their program differently. The team's program is to win league. However, if you have an athlete who can make it to state, you don't want to wear them down by doing too many events when they're at league, when they need to continue going for another several weeks just to make it to state and also perform at a very high level. This happens many times where a coach's goals are to win himself or herself a banner or a plaque, when the focus is, I could actually give up this team championship to make sure that these 4 athletes are rested, then have 4 athletes make it to state, and one of them potentially win state. But that one can't win if they're doing 4, 5, or 6 events, depending on what state you're in. But in California, 4, because they're going to be tired in the different rounds and multiple races that just fatigue them out. The next part is the micro season. So it's focusing on the primary event, right? So for example, I had an athlete that was going to make it to state in long and triple. I had another athlete who's going to make it to state in high jump and triple. Well, the conflict is high jump and triple are at the exact same time at the state championship. So we already decided, listen, you're not going to do both because you can't jump your peak height in high jump and jump your furthest distance at the same time in triple jump, literally at the exact same time. So we just figured out, okay, this is our primary, this is our secondary. And then what we did was we really focused on everything we did was always around the premise of we need to make sure we're focusing on our primary. The secondary, we're going to get better as we go. But whenever we have a choice between the two, we're going to put our focus on our primary event to get those extra reps in. The last thing is focus on one event per week and keeping balance. What I mean by that is not just doing only one event, but if an athlete does triple, long, and high jump, well, this week we're going to focus on speed training, right? So the speed is going to be great for long jump. The speed might be a detriment depending on the level of ability for the triple jumper. And also for high jump, it's going to be a really tough process because they're going to be bringing in too much speed and they're going to affect their overall high jump positions. So what are we really working on, right? So if we say we're working on speed, great. Well, we're going to work on speed and then we're only going to focus and put our weight on the long jump and keeping our speeds through. Triple jump, because you're running faster, we're going to expect you to be rushed through your jumps. It's okay. Do your best. Hang in there. Then for high jump, we're going to take off a little bit further just to make sure that you have enough time to hit your positions throughout the jump. But as you understand what your theme is, then it allows the athlete to be able to foresee what may or may not come within competition. And the last thing with balancing events is you don't have to always do all your events. You don't always have to do all 4 events at a league meet, then turn around and do all 4 events at a weekend invitational, right? Because what's the value? I understand the value because you want to win league at a dual meet. It makes sense, right? Let's get those points on the board. But when it comes to an invitational is a showcase. You're showing off your talent and highlighting your marquee athletes in their marquee events. There's no reason to do all 4 events unless their marquee event is doing multiple events. Being understanding of the wear and tear on the body, and especially if you're doing 4 events on a Thursday, like a weekday meet, you're doing 4 events again on a weekend invitational, and then 4 more events on that next Thursday. Well, that's 3 track meets in a week, and you do the math, that's another 2 or 3 days later. Now they've done 4 track meets in 13 days or 12 days. It's too much. So how do we balance that out? And it's up to you, the coach, to balance that with the athlete by understanding what the athlete's focus is, then also understanding the bigger picture of what's going on. That was a lot of information, but hopefully you were able to stay with me on that one. Once you have all of that set up and you know the plan of each individual athlete, also the team, and then your plan and all where it overlaps, you can now start to apply. How do I train all these levels of jumpers in 3 different events and get them developed when it's only me, right? So the first thing that I always do is I divide them into, originally those 3 groups, but I bring them down into 2, right? I have my learning and my veterans. Now, my novice athletes might be veterans, right? But some of them maybe they're not varsity level yet. If that's the case, then I want them to go down to be able to teach the newbies and also prepares them so when it gets to varsity, they can teach everyone that's below them, right? So I'm really focusing on the learning and then the veterans. So tier 2 is the learning group, tier 1 is the veterans. So I have, for example, 30, 40 athletes in front of me. And I'm like, okay, how do I make this happen? Well, I'm going to have the learning and the novice athletes doing 2 different types of workouts. One's going to be like strength, whether it's squats, lunges, maybe plyometrics, but the plyometrics are going to be super simple. And I'm going to have the returners or the novice athletes keeping an eye on the form and making sure that those athletes are doing things safely. The next part is when they finish that and they do their running piece, right? So they're off doing their own thing. The next part is I now have my returners that are going to be doing something, right? So now what I will do with them is split the returners up into two. I'll have one doing a jump prep. Jump prep is like a way to buy time. What I mean by that is, they'll be doing bounding, their approach work, things that may take 10 to 15 minutes. That allows me to take the athletes who are actually jumping to get through the motions and get 15, 20 minutes of coaching for that specific event. So if I'm having my horizontal jumpers, right, doing the jump prep, I'll run across the track and I will focus on those high jumpers, getting their steps, working on their takeoff positions, and then setting them up. Then once they're done, maybe it's 30 minutes, right? Well, the other group has waited 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Then I take them through their positions. While the high jump group is done, they now have a plyo workout or something that's beneficial for their high jump mechanics. Then I have the triple jump, long jump group doing their thing. And I keep this flow going. So now if I think about it, if I have 40 athletes, I can still have 40 athletes divided up into 4 groups. 2 groups are the beginners and the novice athletes doing their strength development and conditioning. Then I have my event specific group that is doing the high jump and triple jump, but they're starting with doing the jump prep stuff, getting their body ready to go and specific movements while I have my back towards all of them coaching the high jump. And then we'll flip flop. And that's a way to keep the motions going. It's not going to be easy in the beginning. And it's very important that you try and let the athletes know, I need your support. And whatever you do see athletes that are not really being focused and they're playing around, well, then you can offer not a punishment, but something that is at stake. What are we going to do when we're not in this position? And so I usually give a lane 7, which kind of is a punishment. However, what I do is the punishment goes towards the whole team, the whole jump team overall, because my leaders need to make sure that everyone is in line. I need to make sure my leaders are in line to make sure that the athletes are in line, because if we're not getting the benefit that we can, and the reason why we're here, then we're all going to miss either the team's vision or my vision as a coach or your vision as an athlete, and it's keeping them in line in that aspect, right? You may lose some athletes, you may gain some athletes. It all depends on your coaching style. And it's very important that you keep your cool throughout this process and allow everything to kind of marinate before it just sets into it being perfect, right? What else? That's it for the application. And the last thing for bonus information, these parts are very important to kind of look at. It's, as a large group, it's important that you give roles. Like the giving role piece is like amazing. Like maybe you have a badge that you give the athletes and they can wear this chain or a badge that says they're the leader for the day. It gives them this like emotion of like, you know what, I got this and I can do it. What I usually do with the athletes when they do have that role is I speak to them about feedback and I give them feedback on, hey, this worked, this didn't work, what else can we do? And now let's interview someone else to be able to figure out more ways to make the communication or the leadership style more effective, right? And then another part that's very important is make sure that when you are coaching, even in these big groups, is that you're standing in a place that allows you to see everyone. It's not always perfect, especially if you're on the other side of the track, but figure out a way that you can keep eyes on everyone and getting things done. So when I'm coaching my jumpers, I can see the jumpers, both pits, if you have both pits, and I'll get to that soon. Then I can see the running group, right? And I make sure that they finish in a certain spot that I can see them. Then I also have the training group. So the only group that I may not be able to see specifically will be the group that's way across the track. And if that is a case where I can't see the kids all the way across the track, well, then I'll simply bring the high jump pit near me so I can coach them all in the same space and be able to see them. And that's mainly for their safety. And the last thing is we happen to have 2 runways that allows more jumpers to get more jumps done. But if you only have 1 runway, You can do triple jump bounding on the track, and then the long jump jumping on the runway, and then figure out ways to make that happen. So that is just an overview of the information. There's so many more variables to this process, but the biggest thing is being prepared. Just like cooks, before they make their food, they got to go get the ingredients, preheat the oven, prep the food. The prep time sometimes takes more time than it does the actual cooking process. So when it comes to this example, it's the same thing. You might take more time with meetings and conversations with the head coach, meetings and reflections with yourself, meetings with the returners and athletes. Then once you have all of that set up, then you can work on the application, see how it works out, and then fine tune all those details. Hopefully this was beneficial for you. I feel it was, just talking it out, because a lot of these things I do, but I just do because I know the result's going to be crazy and hectic. And so I try to make sure that everything's done before, so I can teach less and do less in the application process. And that's my philosophy specifically. So hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email at info@KeinanBriggs.com or comment below in the description box, and I will see you all soon.